Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're back. I got asked to do a draft analysis for the PSEUDO Hydreigon division, and I thought, yeah, that could be kind of fun. So here we are. I'm going to break down the teams, say what I like about them, say what I don't like about them. If I see a place where they could definitely improve, I'll give a little recommendation. I didn't feel like they were so differentiated that I could accurately rank them, but I can kind of say with some clarity how good a team I think it is. And I think, yeah, it should be a fun vid, and I'll try and keep it short-ish. I tried to record this once before, and it was like a 48-minute rambling session. It was kind of aimless, so hopefully we'll be a little more concise this time around. And with that said, let's just go ahead and get right into it. So first team I'm going to talk about is the Molsting Mucks, coached by Vic. And he's got Dragapult, Ferrothorn, Dracovish, Raikou, Pelipper, Megapert, Rabombi, Weavile, and Chansey. So the things I really like about this team is that he has a Dragapult, first of all, and Dragapult's crazy. And then he supports it pretty well in a really creative way. I think Rain paired with Dragapult is a super neat way to really bring out some of its strengths. It gives it a lot more viability with running more versatile sets, since it powers up its Hydro Pump and it lets you spam Thunder without missing, which are two really nice coverage moves that Drag can use to a good effect. He's got a good defensive backbone with the Chansey and the Ferrothorn. Chansey's much better this gen because it gets Teleport now, so it's not as much of fodder towards teams that would just kind of take advantage of it by taunt. Well, it's still weak to taunt, but Substitute in particular is something that this team shouldn't worry about because he does have the Dragapult, which is a great infiltrator user. So I think that synergy there is really cool. Yeah, Rain's pretty neat. He's got some really good offensive threats. But I also think there's definitely some weaknesses to this team. The first thing, I think that he definitely could benefit from having one extra Mon. There's some teams that can make it work really well with having just 9 Mons. I feel like this team would be better off with a 10th or an 11th Mon, but I'm not sure how he would get to that exactly. I also don't like the Dracovish on this team. It's really strong, but it's just kind of unnecessary, I feel. He's got the strong Water Breaker with Mega Pert and also Weavile as well. Weavile and Dragapult can all serve as breakers, along with the Raikou to an extent with Rain Boost. So it just feels like it's out of place, and it could have been sourced towards a Mon that supports his whole team better. One thing that he really lacks is Toxic Spikes. I think T-Spikes would be super good with his team because everyone knows that Dragapult with spamming boosted Hex with the T-Spikes is just such a nice thing to have. So I definitely think that he could get that done. I looked around at what was taken, and I think that a smart move would be to drop the Dracovish, pick up Nidoqueen, and then get a 1-pointer like Frogadier. People don't sleep on Frogadier. It's 1 point in this league. It gets Protean. It learns T-Spike, so that would net you 2 Toxic Spike users, and it would just flush out the team a bit more. It gives you another nice electric resist because you can never have enough of those with another Rain team, I feel, and a way to block Volt Switch. And Nidoqueen's just a super nice Mon. They would also get you another Hazard Setter. Yeah, I think that would really help him out. Also, I don't like his removal on this team very much. All he has as a reliable defogger is the Pelipper, which is kind of hindered since it's weak to rocks, and Pelipper's pretty easy to kill. And if you want to run boots for more longevity, you aren't able to get the damp rock and extend the amount of rain that you have, or you can't run an offensive set as well if you're not running specs or something like that. So definitely, if you could find a way to get another remover, that would be nice. His team does not like spikes, and it really does not like Toxic Spikes. That's another reason why I think Nidoqueen would be really great. Having a grounded poison type is something that every team should have. So this team's pretty cool. I like it a lot. I definitely think drop Dracovish and get like Nidoqueen or some other grounded poison type, and use any extra points to just get some low tier Mon that could benefit your team. Overall, not too bad. This is definitely a very threatening draft. Next up, we got the Stunabanders, coached by Food. He's got Torn T, Megazard X, Rotom Shaman, Excadrill, Florges, Muck, Alola, Mesprit, and the Hippowdon. The things I like about this team, he's got some really good speed, he's got some really good momentum grabbing, and he has breakers that take advantage of getting that momentum with the Zard X and the Excadrill. Excadrill Sand, it's strong, it's really threatening against other people's teams. He drafted the best Sand Drill counter, or one of the best in Rotom Wash, and it just pairs really well with this team. He has great removal options to support Zardex. Torn's really good this gen. I'm not convinced that it's round or second overall pick worthy, as a lot of people are thinking, but I definitely respect it, and I'm interested to see how it'll work as this gen goes out. My criticisms with this team, actually I have one more positive thing to say, is that he has a lot of really great Stealth Rock options with Drill, but mainly Hippowdon and Mesprit. Those things are really good, reliable Stealth Rockers that you should be bringing Mesprit and Hippowdon most weeks, I feel. This is another team that I feel definitely could benefit from having one extra Mon, and he also has 4 extra points, so I don't see why he's not using those. I definitely think he should do that, and probably my biggest criticism for this team is that he has both Shaman and Florges, which are 2 Mons that just really don't do as well this gen as they did in previous ones. Losing Hidden Power is not that great, and I really feel that you could get rid of both of those, get a budget Grass and a budget Fairy that do similar jobs, and then combine with those 4 points, you could get one more high tier Mon that would provide a really significant threat. I think this team could definitely utilize having a special breaker. I don't really think Torn's a breaker. Mons that rely on setup immediately aren't what I would consider breaker. I think he wants like the immediate power, so then you can get the Torn T sweep, or you can get the Excadrill sweep and that kind of thing. So I definitely think he could reallocate his points. There's absolutely no reason that you should have 4 points left over. There's plenty of good Mons that you could get for 4 points or less, or you could even get 2 decent 2-pointers. Like there's a whole lot you can do there. You can definitely get creative. So it's a solid team, but it can't. With some good ad drops, this team could go from alright to one of the best in the league. So next up, we're going to move on to Internal's team, the Internal Atake. And I love this team a whole lot. I think it's really excellent. Mega Mawile, Slowbro, Mandibuzz, Gengar, Arcanine, Kyurem, Breloom, Galvantula, Rhyperior, and Ditto. He supports the Mega Mawile really, really well. I think this thing is going to be pretty crazy this gen, because one of the big reasons why it was allowed as much as it was in Gen 7 was because Z-moves were there to threaten one-shots on it that could not happen in ORAS. That was a big reason why it was banned in so many ORAS leagues, is because it was super hard to kill, and it would pretty much net you a KO or 2 anytime it came in. So I definitely think this is a Mon that is going to have a good time this generation, and I just really like Internal's team. He has good momentum into a whole lot of wall breakers. He definitely has wall breakers with the Breloom, the Kyurem, and the Mega Mawile, and even Rhyperior. He got a whole lot of Mons that really benefit from additions of Gen 8. Arcanine loves the boots and having teleport. Kyurem loves all of the new coverage it gets in the boots. Breloom gets close combat, which gives it a nice reliable fighting stab to go along with all of its technician boosted moves. Of course, Slowbro with the teleport. Mandibuzz loves having the boots. Gengar loves having no pursuit in the tier. So I think this team is really cool. The biggest criticisms I have is that his rockers are pretty poor. He's got Rhyperior and Mega Mawile. I don't think you want to be running Mega Maw that often, since you really want to use those 4 moves as best as you can, because that's the best Mon on your team. You want to be running all out attack, you want to be running subsets, you want to be running SD3 attacks or bulky sets or what have you. And Rhyperior is a good Mon, but I don't think you can bring it every week, so it's definitely something that he could work on. Ditto's just kind of there. It's a cool Mon if you use it right. I've just never been crazy about it. I definitely think you could get rid of that Ditto and maybe like Galvantula and get a combination of 2 Mons that can get up rocks pretty well for you. I don't think his removal's that. I think his removal is pretty good, even if he only has Mandibuzz for the defog. Mandibuzz is like the best defogger around, I feel. So that's not too big of a deal, and you're going to be wanting to bring Mandy to pretty much every matchup anyways, because it's just so nice to have, and it's so hard to kill with the boots, and can get you so much momentum. It can stall break and do all that stuff. Really good mon. Might have been taken too early, but with how popular it is, I don't blame him for taking it round 3. And that cheap pick in round 2 and round 3 allowed him to get just a lot of really solid mons across the board. Internal hasn't played very well to start the league. I think he's 0-2, but this team has a lot of potential. With a couple tweaks, I think this team could be excellent. Definitely, I think a bit more bulk could serve him well. But aside from that, really good team. Really like it. One of my top 3 favorites for sure. Also, getting T-Spikes and Spikes would be super great because you have a lot of mons that force switches. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next team, which is the Indian Nose Pass, coached by Ravo. This is another team that I think is pretty crazy. Aegis, Mega Diancie, Hydreigon, Buzzwole, Suicune, Serena, Nidoking, Thundurus, and Miltank. Now, I've knocked the first 2 teams that had 9 mons for not having enough mons, but I think this team can kind of make it work. His first 3 mons are just crazy. Like, I feel like you would be hard-pressed to not find a matchup where Aegis, Mega Diancie, and Hydreigon all shouldn't come. I feel like they're going to come pretty much every week. There's just not a whole lot of reason for them not to. Aegis got a little worse with its offenses and defenses lowering by 10 apiece, but it got some more coverage moves. Diancie got a lot better with the addition of Mystical Fire, I feel, and also doesn't have to worry about like random HP steals, I suppose. And Hydreigon got a lot better with the advent of Nasty Plot on it. So I think those 3 are just great. Suicune's a good mon. I like it a lot. I really like Nidoking, and Miltank's a good budget for this team. Serena's okay. Serena's not a good mon, but it fits this team pretty well, giving you a rapid spinner so you don't have to rely on like Defog Thundurus or Defog Hydreigon. His removal's okay, could definitely be better, and I also think that his rockers could be a little better. Nidoking serves as a good defensive or offensive rocker, and Miltank a good defensive rocker, but you don't always want to be running rocks on Nidoking, and you're not going to be able to bring Miltank to every match. I'm not crazy about the Buzzwole. I think that's the biggest knock on this team. I feel like you could get rid of that thing and either get one mon of similar value that could maybe get up rocks for you, or drop it and something else maybe and get 2 lower tiered mons that could help you get up some kind of hazards. But aside from that, this team is really solid. It's super threatening, and I think it should be pretty successful in this league. Next up, we got the Pandas team, which has Mew, Tarak, Crobat, Tapu Bulu, Manaphy, Entei, Vikavolt, Duraludon, Mamoswine, and Galarian Corsola. Now, this doesn't have a Mega. I don't think it hurts his team that much, and this is a team that greatly benefited from the grace period changes it had. To start off, right after the draft ended, this was my least favorite draft. He had like round 3 Bisharp and just a bunch of other stuff that didn't really fit. But I think getting Crobat over the Bisharp really, really helps this team out. However, he has no Dark type now, which is definitely going to hurt him in the long run. So I definitely think finding a way to stick a Dark type on this team would really help him out. But he has a lot of great mons. Mew, it's always been excellent. Tarak's pretty neat. I don't think it's a round 2 mon. It's just not versatile enough, I feel, to be taken as a round 2. It's strong and has, it's just kind of strong, and that's about it, I feel. Solid mon, but not my favorite. Bulu and Manaphy are really cool together. I like the Entei. Of course, it's not as good as it was in Oras when Burn did 12%. You could spam Sacred Fire everywhere, but still a solid mon. Gives you a good priority user. Mamoswine's another nice mon. He's got just this really nice looking bulky offense team that has some decent pivots. He used Vikavolt really, really well in one of his latest games, and it just totally tossed his opponent's team and was cool to see. Overall, I think this team's really solid. The improvements that were made during the grace period really brought up its stock. However, it's very weak to T-Spikes. His only poison type's Crobat, so pretty much everything else gets affected by it. Galarian Corsola is just kind of there. I feel like you could swap it out for something else, maybe get a Dark type instead of that. And I don't know how I feel about Duraludon. It's kind of okay, maybe, and it definitely fulfills some types that he needs on this team. So I understand why it's on there, but I don't think it's the best mon around. So definitely getting a Dark type would help him here, and a way to better deal with T-Spikes would be good. But aside from that, I think this team's pretty solid overall. Definitely one that's going to give anyone a run for their money. Next up, got Casey Jirachi, who's coached by Landslide. He's got Megalop, Corviknight, Hoopa U, Seismitoad, Volcarona, Rillaboom, Klefki, Nihilego, Regirock, and Audino. Now this is a cool team. It has a lot of really strong offenses and really good momentum to get into his breakers. So I like that a whole lot. It kind of almost centers around getting momentum into Hoopa and Volcarona and maybe even Rillaboom to do breaking so that stuff like Lopunny and maybe Nihilego can clean up. He's got the HO, the ability to set up an HO team with like Klefki setting up screens and spikes. He's got all of his hazards. My biggest knock on this team is there's just a little bit of overlap that seems kind of awkward. Having Klefki and Corviknight's kind of weird. Having both Nihilego and Regirock is kind of weird. And Audino doesn't really fit the team, I feel. If he's going for this more offensive, momentum-based team, Audino just kind of kills a lot of momentum. I mean, it does have Regenerator, so it doesn't rely on healing up before it switches out, but it just doesn't fit to me. He can definitely make it work, but it just seems kind of weird, you know. But overall, I think this team's really great. He supports the Lopunny very well. Corviknight's a good mon. Hoopa U is also supported very well. He has good bug checks on this team, a whole lot of good bug checks. And I think this is another team that could be very threatening. Definitely requires a more offensive mindset. I would personally like if he had a little better reliable recovery and bulk on this team, but it's definitely something that you can make work if you play it the right way. But it's definitely something where you have to play really well, and your prep might not be the thing that wins you games, but more so your play, which is risky because you have to rely on your play more, and that's not for everybody. But overall, really solid. Definitely one of the better drafts. Very threatening. I think it's going to be good. Next up, we got Johnny's team. He's got Galarian Darmanitan, Victini, Zapdos, Tapu Fini, Mega Venusaur, Zoroark, Forretress, Reneragus, and Hawlucha. This team's kind of weird. He has really good offensive threats. I mean, Galarian Darmanitan, Victini, Zapdos, they all hit really hard. He's got the sweeper potential with Lucha with the terrain, and he has a decent. He has a pretty good defensive backbone with the Zapdos, Fini, Mega Venu. I don't like Forretress. I think Reneragus is pretty cool though. I also don't really like the role that Zoroark plays on this team. It just feels like it and Hawlucha seem kind of unnecessary as a fast cleaner sort of thing. And there's just something about this team that is missing. I definitely think he could benefit from having another Mon, and just some things that fit better. He is extremely weak to Ghost. His only resist is Zoroark, which is not standing up to strong Ghost types in the tier. And overall, I think this team also has a really big problem with Stealth Rock. He has good removal, but you can definitely play around an opponent that has Defog and Spin, so that you're putting a lot of pressure on their team, so they can't get rid of hazards. So I definitely think this team's going to have a hard time with just hazards. It's going to be a tough thing for him to overcome. Really going to have to be diligent about keeping those hazards off and keeping up momentum so that you have your offensive threats. This is definitely a team where I feel once you get on the back foot, it would be very hard to get back into the game. So overall, it definitely could be used to good effect, but there's definitely something missing here, and I think he could improve that by making a couple of changes. I couldn't tell you what those were off the top of my head. Anyways, we're going to move on to Ice's team. I believe it's pronounced Ice. He's got Zygarde, Melmetal, Megamedi, Celebi, Togekiss, Cinderace, Incineroar, Whimsicott, Tentacruel, and Claydol. The first three picks are insane. He's got, let me repeat after me, Zygarde, Melmetal, Megamedicham. Just three incredible offensive win-con threat, whatever you want to call it. Three excellent mons. And then after that, I feel this draft really falls off. His biggest problem is that he just drafts too much of the same stuff. He's got 2 grass types, he has 2 fairy types, he has 2 fire types. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I understand that this team could certainly work because you're pretty much going to be bringing your first 3 mons to every game, and then you can kind of just bring the rest depending on the matchup. You could definitely, with a more offensive-based team, you could bring the Cinderace over the Incineroar and the Whimsicott over the Celebi. And if you're running a more defensive team, you'd run Celebi and Incineroar instead of Whims and Cinderace. But it just feels unnecessary. I definitely feel he could have gotten a lot more value by drafting a more diversified team. It definitely opens him up to a whole lot of weaknesses. Scald seems like a pretty free thing to spam against his team. The only real switch in is Celebi that doesn't mind because it has Natural Cure. Everything else gets crippled by Burn. Also, his team doesn't have a ton of good reliable recovery. Outside of the Celebi and the Togekiss, nothing gets instant recovery, and I guess Recover Medicham, but that's not too much of a set you see. So I definitely think this team could be optimized better. Decide, I feel, whether you want to keep Celebi or Whimsicott, and decide whether you want to keep Cinderace or Incineroar, and then get 2 other Mons that would benefit your team. I think one type that I think is always okay to double up on is Waters. I think a better bulky Water, or maybe a more offensive Water to go along with Tentacruel, could be beneficial for him here. This team has a ton of potential, and I think it'll win a lot of games, but there's definitely some big flaws in the drafting itself. So I'll be curious to see how this team turned out this season. Next up, we're going to move on to Brian and his Mexican Muse. This, I think, is my favorite team in the draft. So we got Coco, Gliscor, Necrozma, Komo-o, Alomomola, Heatran, P2, Piloswine, Sableye, Roselia, and Alolan Raichu. He's drafted 11 Mons, and I think one of the biggest benefits is that all 11 Mons have a good chance to come to any given match. I think he drafted really, really well. Coco's great. Gliscor is totally excellent. Those two back each other up really well. Necrozma and Komo-o are really solid this gen, I feel. Excuse me. He's got the good defensive core. He's got good offenses. I feel like he really just kind of has all of his bases covered. If there's anything to knock, it's that Roselia is not the most reliable Mon to be your grounded poison type, though it's still really solid. I mean, I have it in my draft, and I'm going to be relying on that a little bit. But there's, not a ton that I can necessarily knock in this team. With the right prep and play, this can definitely win a lot of games. By no means is it invincible, but I think it's the most fun-looking team on the board, for sure. This is a team that I would enjoy using. It has a great mix of overwhelming bulk and really strong offense, and you can really bring any kind of team build against your opponent. You could bring anywhere from hyper offense to stall, and it should work pretty well. So I think that's going to benefit him very well. If Brian's a strong builder, this team will really be an excellent team to work with. Definitely one that I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely my favorite, and it will be super fun to use. So if you ever want me to play some games for you, Brian, hit me up. Next up, we got the Sacramento Shaman, coached by Ismail. Now, this is another crazy team. He's got Mega Gal, Clef, Zeraora, Tangrowth, Garchomp, Slowking, Scizor, Drapion, Cryo. I don't know how he did it, but he drafted like 5 of the best Draft League Mons. And then the rest of his team's pretty good too. Scizor is one of those things that got so much better without HP Fire, because if there's a Scizor, you run HP Fire on everything, and it's pretty much neutralized, and now that's not a thing in this gen. That's probably old news for everyone listening, but I feel like pointing it out. Mega Galade's crazy, Clef's crazy. That's a core that I've used to great success in the past. Zeraora's just a super solid Mon that you can do a whole lot with. Garchomp's another Mon that is so much better this gen. Slowking gets that teleport, so he has really solid momentum with Scizor, with Slowking, Zeraora. I think that's it, yeah. He has good momentum. He has solid hazards with Clef, Chomp, and I'm not missing something. He has but 2 solid rockers, 1 good defensive, 1 good offensive. He doesn't have spikes, which is a bummer, but with this team, I don't think it minds too much. He has got solid bulk and solid offense. It's a team that doesn't really suffer too much from only having 9 Mons, and I think Cryo could be pretty interesting this gen with having the boots at its disposal, so it's not getting chipped all the time. Definitely a team to keep my eye on. I think it's going to have great success, because when you have just 5 busted Mons, or not busted, but just really good mons that fit together well, I think there's going to be great success. There's nothing wasted on this team. It's very concise and just very scary. Definitely going to be tough for opponents to prep for. You know what's coming, but you just won't be able to deal with it all that well because there's so many overwhelmingly good mons to deal with. I like this team a lot. Definitely one of the best. I think is probably a team that could end up in a championship match, if not take it all home. Next up, second to last, we got the Valdosta V Creates, coached by Crossbow. He's got Lando T, Rachi, Mega Sceptile, Galarian Weezing, Silvally, Rotom Heat, Jellicent, Pangoro, Vanillix, Crustle, and Lycanroc. Now, I look at this team and I like it, but it's weird. I love the first two picks, Lando T, Jirachi, A Tale as Old as Time. They're excellent together. And then it just kind of gets weird from there. I don't like Mega Sceptile in round 3. It's an interesting mon since it gets D-Dance to boost its offenses, I suppose, but it just seems a little, it seems very out of place, especially when stuff like Mega Medicham, Necrozma, Zeraora, Zapdos were all being taken, wait, no, never mind, I'm wrong. Anyways, there's definitely good mons that were still around, and I think he could have just picked a better mon there. Aside from that, though, I think this team's pretty solid. I think the defensive core is incredible with Rotom Heat, Jellicent, Jirachi, Landorus T. Those mons are all relatively offensively threatening to very offensively threatening, and they have really good defensive synergy together. I like that a whole lot. I think Wish Jirachi could be a very useful mon for this team since a lot of his mons lack recovery, and wishing into Lando to Weezing to Silvally to Rotom could all be super duper useful. I really love that defensive core. I really don't like the early Mega Sceptile pick. He definitely could have picked just a better Mega. And I think the end of the draft is kind of weird. Pangoro, Vanillix, Crustle, Lycanroc. They're all decent mons that have good matchups now and then, but I feel you could have condensed those into 2 or 3 mons instead of 4 and gotten one more just really, really good mon that you can reliably bring to matches, because that's what you really want in drafts, is mons that you can reliably bring, and then just have a couple mons that are niche that occasionally have an excellent matchup that's going to take your opponent off guard. So this team has a ton of potential. I think it can win a lot of games. It's just kind of awkward in how it was drafted, but I think it's going to be pretty successful. And finally, we got the Peruvian Peaches, coached by Quad. It's got Celesteela, Latios, Sylveon, Titar, Darmanitan, Serperior, Articuno, Swampert, Luxray, Hitmontop, and Umbreon. Now, I really like the beginning of this draft. The first 5 picks are all super good. Selly and Latios are great. Selly has cosmic power now, which sounds crazy. Sylveon definitely benefits this gen from getting Mystical Fire and not being as threatened by Z moves, and having that wish support for his team is really cool. Titar is still great, even if it can't Pursuit Trap, it's still an excellent mon, and it's also one of the best Latios checks around, and he took it for himself, which was smart, I feel. Darm's just a good wall breaker, useful for his team. I don't know how often he'll bring it, but it can definitely work. Now, the last half of the draft definitely is very faulty, and I think he could improve a whole lot, making some ad drops. I like Swampert a whole lot. I like Articuno a lot. I don't like anything else. I hate the Serp, I hate Luxray, I hate Hitmontop, and I hate Umbreon. Umbreon, in itself is a good mon, but it just doesn't fit on this team. He already has a Wish Passer. He already has a Dark type. Having it just doesn't make a whole ton of sense. It's not like these two have the best double Wish synergy, I feel. So it just seems unnecessary. If I were him, I would drop Serperior, Luxray, Hitmontop, and Umbreon. Get just get 2 or 3 mons that are, just get a budget grass type and then get 2 really solid higher tier mons, and this team would just be excellent. So I think this team has a lot of great potential, but the last 3 picks are all a waste to me, and the Serperior pick Serperior is just not that good this gen. I feel it's going to have a hard time breaking anything, since it really can only use its Grass Stab, and then its best coverage moves are Hyper Beam, Dragon Pulse, using Nature Power under Terrain, which he doesn't have a Terrain setter. So this team's got a ton of potential. I don't want to dog on it too much since he has His first 5 mons can come pretty much any week, and Swampert, I think, is a mon that just kind of comes every week since it's so reliable at setting rocks. So he has a lot of good things, but I think his periphery picks just need some improvement and just some fine tuning, and then I think this could be a really solid team. So yeah, a lot of potential, but a lot of flaws. So that's me going over this draft, all these drafts, and I hope that it was insightful and kind of interesting to listen to. You could put this on in the background and you vibe while doing something. But yeah, that's all I got. Hope y'all have a great day, and I'll see you later. Peace out.